I think it was last week that Mike Greenberg on the Mothership talked about how good UConn is and that UConn could make the playoffs in the NBA. And he later backtracked after he realized that it was a silly comment and said he was just joking. So I wasn't joking when I reached out to DraftKings and I said, hey, let's come up with a betting line. This Connecticut team versus the Detroit Pistons. I'm going to let you guys decide what you think that point spread would be. So DraftKings decided they would come up with a point spread for me if the UConn men's team played the Detroit Pistons. Now, we didn't factor in where they would be playing, if it's at, Connecticut, if the Pistons are going to be playing at home, let's say a neutral site. Pistons are the worst team. Marvin, I'm going to start with you. The point spread that Connecticut and Detroit would be. How many points do you think the UConn Huskies would be getting?
50.5.
50.5. All right, Paulie?
14.5.
14.5. Seton O'Connor?
This is 21.5.
All right, Todd?
17.5.
According to DraftKings, the Pistons would be listed as a 45-point favorite.
What?
45.5 or
45.
Oh, that's
Straight up.
Just 45.
Wow.
45. That's why it's silly when we do this. And we have Tom Izzo, Michigan State head coach, coming up. I want to ask him, what's the last team that you think could actually compete against an NBA team? And I don't know how long ago do you go back and say that team was good enough, had enough talent that they could play against the worst team in the NBA. Because the Pistons aren't very good or the Spurs aren't very. Imagine if the Spurs, as bad as they are, played against the Connecticut men's team. Okay? We get caught up in this. And I know maybe Greeny's just trying for a hot take there because, you get intoxicated being on those shows that you got to have a hot take. I truly believe that Greeny meant it and then realized that, it does sound silly, but that's DraftKings. And all they're trying to do is have a betting. They're not invested emotionally into this. They're just saying if these two teams met, that the Pistons would give 45 points to Connecticut. They're being objective. But I wonder, is there a team, can you think of a team that was talented enough where you'd go, all right, that might be a little more interesting here. Yes, Marvin?
On the football side, I think of the 01 Miami Hurricanes.
Yes.
They had tons of NFL talent on the field, tons of NFL talent as backups.
Yes. That's as talented as we've probably seen in recent memory. But basketball-wise, is there a team, a school, that you think could compete, stay in the game against the worst basketball team? Todd?
Kareem Walton, any of the UCLA years? One of those teams that could.
Well, they weren't together.
Or like whatever the best UCLA team under John Wooden would be.
I think only because of Kareem and how great he was. But, he had Lucius Allen, who played in the NBA. You had Mike Warren, who was a really good shooting guard as well. It wasn't a great team. They just had Kareem, and that could be the difference just about any night out. Even with Walton had some NBA players. Dave Myers was a really good player. Larry Farmer was a really good, but they weren't great players. So I guess I would say UCLA, you could factor them in. Yes, Marvin.
I'm just going off of NBA talent. This team didn't even go to the Final Four. The DeMarcus Cousins, John Wall, Kentucky team, were Eric Bledsoe and Patrick Patterson.
Yeah. Okay. But once again, that's a young team too. But then the Pistons are young as well. The Pistons are probably the same age as that Kentucky team. What about the national championship Kentucky team with Anthony Davis? Would they? I'm trying to think who else was on that roster when they won the title. Do you remember, Marv? Who else AD had?
Michael Kidd Gilchrist.
Okay. I'll give you a bloop on that one.
The Harrison twins, maybe? They didn't make it to the NBA. I don't know.
They were good players, but once again, the guys who are in the NBA are really good. They may not be, team might not be good, but you are playing against the best players in the world. Yes, Seton.
That's why these discussions are so stupid. They're fun, but they're so stupid because you're taking a college team and playing against a team where literally every single player is good enough to play in the NBA.
Yeah, because they're in the NBA.
Because they're in the NBA. They're good enough to play in the NBA.
Yeah. Well, the audience can help out with this, but I'm curious if, Mike, even Georgetown with Patrick Ewing, I don't know if they were a great team. I mean, Freddie Brown, Michael Graham, when Sleepy Floyd was there, but trying to figure out, I would say the Houston team that had Akeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler, that was really good, but they didn't even win the national championship. So I thought it was funny. I thought it was interesting to find out exactly what Vegas would think of this. And then DraftKings said, and I go, wait, I think you put down 45-point spread. And they said, yes. And I go, oh, okay. Yeah, Paulie.
I'll throw out the 82 North Carolina team with James Worthy, Sam Perkins, and Michael Jordan. Perkins and Worthy were upperclassmen. Jordan, I know he was young, but that's one that popped in my head from a talent standpoint.
Okay.
And maybe the UNLV team with Larry Johnson,
Stacey
Ogman, Anderson Hunt, Greg Anthony. That for one night, that team could swarm people.
Okay, how about this? LSU, 1989, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, Shaq, and Stanley Roberts. Okay. You got my attention there because Mahmoud averaged, I think, 28 a game. But, Shaq wasn't Shaq. He was a freshman. He averaged 14 points. Stanley Roberts averaged 14 points. But I think it would be fun to try to come up with a team. If I said Duke with Grant Hill, Christian Laettner, Bobby Hurley, who else they have? Thomas Hill in there. Brian Davis, was he in there as well? Does that sound right?
Don't sleep on Eric Meek in the post.
Eric Meek's in the post, yes. Anybody else you throw in there, Marv?
It's hard because there's always only like 3 NBA players.
Yes.
And then you need them to play against 5 NBA players.
Yes,
That's always the issue.
That's true. But you got Coach K, coaching you there. Yes, Paul.
You saw this team, the 76 Indiana team, Kent Benson, Tom Abernathy,
Scott May,
Quinn Buckner. Those guys weren't Hall of Famers.
Bobby Wilkerson.
That's a lot of talent, though.
That was a great team. Great team. And they stayed. They were juniors and seniors, I think, for the most part, with Bob Knight. And they went undefeated. Yeah. So Scott May didn't really have a great NBA career. Kent Benson played for a little while. Quinn Buckner played for a while. Bobby Wilkerson, he got drafted, I think, maybe by Cleveland. He was a good player. Abernathy was the 6th man. I think he was drafted by Golden State, maybe in the 2nd round. But, yeah, I think it's interesting to think about that. But then when you factor in reality, which is what DraftKings is doing, all they want to do is get it right. Like, they don't care who's winning by how much from the standpoint of, they're going to get blown out, they're going to get embarrassed, they're going to be more competitive. They're just setting a betting line there, and it's UConn getting 45. Yes, Marvin.
Can you imagine how angry the Pistons would be coming out? Like, wait, you guys think they could be on the floor with us, and Cade Cunningham would go for 60 and 30?
Well, I don't know about that.
I'm sorry. 40 and 25.
Okay.
Okay.